Welcome to Arlington Public News. I'm Brenda Mahoney.
And I'm Paul Werlin. Thanks for joining us. In this edition of APN, Arlington schools invite parents and students to open up a conversation on dating violence, young athletes, and concussions, the policies and protocols in place to keep Arlington athletes healthy in the face of new research.
And a man wearing a dress. Meet Glenn Koenig. His new book is a journey of self-discovery and optimism. That and more when we come back. Stay with us. Arlington Public Schools are sorting out the latest MCAS results and digging deeper into the call for full-time kindergarten teaching assistants.
Sean Stackhouse has the details in this week's Snapshot. Sean?
That's right, Paul. The state's comprehensive assessment exam results are out, and although Arlington did better than the rest of the state, fewer students are getting high scores. School officials say not to worry, though, because the nearly 20-year-old exam is more challenging now. The state and Arlington administered what's known as the Next Generation MCAS for the first time last spring for grades 3 through 8. 10th graders who need to pass the exam in order to graduate received the Legacy MCAS. Assistant Superintendent Roderick McNeil told the school committee at its October 26th meeting that the test is meant to measure critical thinking skills and that work is already underway to teach the higher standards set by the state's curriculum frameworks.
I want to stress, and also through the state, that they're communicating that this is a baseline year. And so we have to utilize this to say, okay, this is what we're going to utilize in order to focus our efforts going further in the future. We're going to look at the standards, we're going to look at our instruction, and we're going to see what areas we need to focus our efforts. And then they also talk about how this year's results should not be compared to previous year's scores because of the difference in the test.
Speaking to Arlington Public News before the school committee meeting, member Cindy Stark said she's glad the test is being updated, that as a teacher, measuring students' abilities and skills is more valuable than simply testing knowledge.
It's not, have you memorized these 5 items and can you, regurgitate them back in these multiple choice questions? Now it's, here's a set of skills we want you to do. And I think that before we weren't really sure, well, how do you assess those skills? That's what we're doing now. Whereas before we were testing knowledge. Now we're assessing skills. And I think that's really, that's what teaching is.
Another major difference with the new MCAS is that it is computer-based as opposed to paper-based, with a complete phase-in of taking it online by 2019. The school committee is also concluding their review of teaching assistants for kindergartners. Parents pushed the school committee to look at making part-time teaching assistants full day. The majority of kindergarten classrooms have grown to more than 20 students, with several at or nearing 25. Committee members spoke in support of looking at setting guidelines for the next year, noting that the curriculum for kindergartners has become more challenging. When it comes to making teaching assistants full-time for this year, Superintendent Kathleen Bodie said they are looking at it on a case-by-case basis.
Principals are not shy about saying what they need. But we, we're looking at, I don't think I've said no for a strongly argued TA this year.
The school committee also looked at how buffer zones for the town's 7 elementary schools are doing in keeping schools and classes balanced. Superintendent Bodie concluded the zones are not working as well as years past, and they may need updating in the next couple of years. For a full discussion of these stories, you can view the school committee meeting on our government channel and on ACMi.tv. I'm Sean Stackhouse. That's this week's Snapshot. Back to you, Paul.
More beach hours and year-round access, fewer geese and less sediment. That's what the Recreation Department is hearing from residents as a master plan is developed for upgrades at the Arlington Reservoir. The Rec Department received $100,000 in community preservation funds to develop the master plan. Designers from the Sampson and Weston Design Studios were on hand recently to report on the project and get more feedback from residents.
We are closing in on the end of the site analysis. We've been out on foot, out in boats, out in the rain, out in the sun, out when people were swimming, out when geese were swimming, just all the time. As a master plan, this is a high-level look at everything that we would love to see happen at the reservoir, and then we start to discern how that gets implemented.
So we did have a public meeting there out on the site, and we got a lot of good valuable information. The charts on the right kind of start to distill like what are some of the important themes that people are discussing, and some of that is like nature is some of the best things, the paths, the community, and the beach, and the wildlife. And then some of the key highlights here on the left are just some of the quotes that we've heard in terms of the swimming's awesome, the shade and the grass and the beach are great. And those are the things that we can start to take into account, that we can really start to say, all right, these are things that people find valuable. We want to either expand or contract or amplify this type of usage for people to enjoy and experience.
So what we need from you guys, and what we already are getting, we've actually gotten a bunch of those walkabout guides, but we're looking to see, the good, the bad, and there's nothing ugly at the rest, so we just let the rest. But what are ideas for improvements? We also are super cognizant of the fact that there is much to be celebrated at the res today, and the intention is not to compromise that in any way. It's more like, wow, this place is better, and it's supposed to be this way.
A walkabout guide and comment sheet is available on the Recreation Department page at arlingtonma.gov. Comments are being accepted until November 15th. You can mail your comment sheet to the Recreation Department at 422 Summer Street, Arlington, 02474, or email it to the address on your screen. The next public meeting is scheduled for November 30th, when the team will share its conceptual design ideas with the community.
The long-abandoned gas station along Mass Ave between the high school and Stop and Shop is no more. On Monday, demolition crews razed the building located at 887 Massachusetts Avenue, clearing the way for Arlington's first mixed-use development. In August, the Redevelopment Board approved an amended building design consisting of 3,000 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor and 4 residential units on the 2 upper floors. No date has been announced for construction to begin. Town meeting approved mixed-use buildings along businesses and industrial zones in the town back in 2016. Well, you certainly know the building. It was the one with the one caving in and the red sign on it with the big X.
It's been there, it's been abandoned, what, something like 15 years? I remember that was I think it was a transmission shop. I got my transmission done there back in 1980 something, so it's been a while.
Yeah, so the question as to what's going on with it is finally answered.
It's great that the mixed-use building is coming in. That's a good use for that area.
That's right. Personal stories of loss and violence deliver a moving message about teen dating violence.
And the Spy Ponders sports update. Thanks for a great season. That and more when we come back.
Going live in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Preventing domestic violence is getting attention in Arlington with a focus on safe relationships for teens. As part of its Parent Forum series, the school department hosted a speaker who lost his teenage daughter to a relationship that turned deadly. October has been Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and with that, we have a closer look at why it's important to teach teens about the signs of unhealthy relationships. The pictures of an enthusiastic 18-year-old Lauren Astley, combined with her own version of a popular song, are enough to put any parent to tears. Her father speaking of how she was taken away by a boyfriend who murdered her after a breakup.
We need to ask what should have been in place in my daughter's situation and needs to be in place here in Arlington.
Her father, Malcolm Astley, telling Arlington parents of the signs he has since learned were warnings of a bad relationship, stressing that making connections with children early and keeping them strong throughout life can help both victims and aggressors.
Help our communities keep their ears out for breakups, to see that especially the youth involved in those first most painful breakups for vulnerable kids, they get the support they need. Stop and take the time.
It's one of a series of forums specifically for parents put on by Arlington Public Schools. This one including expertise and input from the Arlington Youth Counseling Center and First Steps Domestic Violence Support Group for Adults. Elaine Shea founded the group and is now realizing education needs to start younger.
Maybe we need to start earlier, because so many of the women who are in the group, the weekly group, had issues way back. And I'm hearing more about young people, junior high, high school kids, who are in very controlling relationships.
Teens are also taught directly about domestic violence, beginning in the 7th and 8th grade and in the 9th grade here at the high school, a whole health and wellness session devoted to the topic. According to Cindy Bouvier of the Arlington Public Schools Health Department, students are also shown a play on teen relationships called The Yellow Dress. In partnership with the Arlington Youth Health and Safety Coalitions, the schools are administering an annual survey of risky behavior of teens. As Ivy Schmalzried reviews the data, it shows 6% of 915 students have been in verbally or emotionally abusive dating relationships.
You know, there are a significant amount of students who are struggling with this, and so we need to do more as a community to provide different programs and interventions that can stop this from happening from both sides.
Back at the forum on promoting safe relationships for teens, True Story Theater acted out parents' emotions after hearing from Malcolm Astley. One parent stating she was naive until then. Another, who was from Iran, had the story of him and his son trying to understand American culture presented.
My son, I want you to be able to see me. I want to be able to see you.
Arlington police were also on hand at the forum, letting attendees know of the resources they can provide. They follow up on any domestic violence call to police and have links to additional resources on their website. For anyone who wants to talk immediately about concerns for their teen or has general support questions, Reach Beyond Domestic Violence out of Waltham has a 24-hour hotline. The number is 800-899-4000. Brenda Mahoney, Arlington Public News. For a full list of resources available for parents and teens in need of help with dangerous relationships, we have links in our story on our website at acmi.tv/news.
Glenn Koenig has been a community activist for decades. He's also a familiar face around town, a tall, lanky, middle-aged man in a dress. Glenn has just released his first book, A Man Wearing a Dress. He describes it as a memoir with reflections on gender identity, thoughts on society, culture, and the future, as well as some poetry at no extra charge. News director Heather Avison sat down with Glenn recently to get a glimpse into the man and the book. Here's a part of that conversation.
You might recognize our guest today, Glenn Koenig, as a resident of Arlington, the man in a dress that you see around town. Glenn has a long history in Arlington, especially with ACMi. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with ACMi?
Well, I volunteered for the old ACA way back when cable first came to Arlington in 1980, 1981 timeframe. And because of some issues with the contract with the cable company later on, we lost our studio in Arlington completely. So over the years, we put together sort of a rough committee in a way and had meetings and finally came to the point of understanding we had to do something because the next contract deadline was approaching. The thing that I did, I think that was most key to it all, was point out how little time there really was between where we were, which is 2002, 2003, and the end of the contract in 2005. And so in a way I kind of lit a fire. And then they said, all right, you be the president, which wasn't president of anything except a whole lot of meetings for a long time, 2 years worth of pretty intense meetings. And finally, we went on the air and I stepped off the board then because I had other things I wanted to do. And I thought, what I've done here is I've done my part. I've made my contribution.
One of the things that you decided you wanted to focus more time on was yourself and getting to know yourself more, which is where the book A Man Wearing a Dress may have begun.
That's true, and that was kind of going on, the beginnings of that were going on in parallel to doing the work on the ACMi board in the early O's, when I was just beginning to try out certain things and go to certain places where I felt safe, and then check in with myself and say, how did that go? What seems like the next step? And kind of make it up as I went along.
Did you see Arlington changing in a way that made you more comfortable being a part of the community in the way you were developing your own sense of being?
I had to push my own boundary one little step at a time, thinking that perhaps I was trans, thinking that perhaps I was going to eventually decide to live life as a woman full time. That's one of the real cruxes of the book, was to understand and discover for myself that that isn't exactly where I was headed after all, and kind of left me out in space going like, okay, now what? I don't fit these fixed categories that people seem to be talking about. So what am I? Who am I? What do I do now?
Do you see yourself on a local level as any kind of role model? Do you feel that you are someone that can be approached for younger people who have questions?
Well, I was volunteering for a number of years with the Unitarian Universalists as an adult advisor to what are called senior youth ministry programs. Most of the young people in that program didn't come right out and say, oh my God, this is just amazing, you know, you've changed my life. I mean, that didn't necessarily happen. But a few of them said a few things, and then I got an impression after a while that the biggest thing was just being me. Yes.
Glenn's book is A Man Wearing a Dress, and he will be at Arlington Robbins Library on November 14th.
That's correct, 7 to 9 p.m.
7 to 9 p.m.
In the community
and
room.
He'll be doing signings, he'll be doing readings, and please stop by and wish him well
And there'll be
take a look at the book.
There'll be copies of the book available there, or you can bring, if you bought one already, bring it with you and I'll sign it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can find a link to the entire interview at acmi.tv/news. Now, Glenn is a really fascinating guy. He has many areas of interest, and he helped found ACMi here many years ago.
That's right. I often pick his brain for things that he has videotaped over the years, and one of them being the beginning of the Minuteman Bikeway starting up, which I utilized in our Bike Path series this past summer, so we really do thank him for a lot. Well, concussion research continues to point out the dangers for young brains. Up next, how Arlington and the youth sports community are working to keep their athletes healthy.
And you don't want to miss the Monster Mash happening right here in the ACMi studios. That and more when we come back.
Hello, my name is Kylie Sullivan and I'm a health compliance officer with the Arlington Board of Health. At the Board of Health, we interpret and enforce state, federal, and local regulations pertaining to health, specifically regarding food establishments, housing issues, and nuisance complaints such as pests, odors, and noises. For more information, please visit the town website, or you can give us a call at 781-316-3170.
Concussion research has been changing the way many view contact sports. Here in Arlington, sports programs are responding with increased efforts to keep young athletes safe while still promoting the value of sports and team play. Our reporter Sean Stackhouse looked into the issue to see the steps Arlington is taking to keep up with the emerging dialogue around concussions.
Here's Bowler and a keeper. He's got room. He's going to zig and zag and zoom. He's going to go all the way into the end zone. Goes Adam.
We know these sports are giving incredible lessons. They're giving exercise. They're giving all of these values that we want our kids to consume and to take in. Can we challenge one another to do that without head hits? Can we challenge one another to give all of those really special values that sports give, without having our kids get hit in the head hundreds of times?
That's a question many in the youth sports world are asking themselves as concussion research continues to grow. Recent studies published in the Journal of Sports Medicine show the majority of concussions suffered by high school athletes are football related, but other contact sports also carry risks. Here in Arlington, protocols and precautions have been developed to protect players before and after a concussion.
They have started using what's called guardian caps at their practices, and it's a little extra padding that goes over the helmet, and it just limits any type of impact that happens on a day-to-day practice. So just taking that extra measure.
But the process begins before a player even takes the field. All Arlington High School student athletes are required to complete an online concussion course and take a baseline test before joining their team, and that is used to assess recovery.
Anytime symptoms of a concussion are reported, that student athlete is removed from the playing field and not cleared back until they've been seen by medical staff. So there's an entire return to play series of steps, of progressions that a student athlete will make. And sometimes you might move forward and then symptoms come back that are of a previous level, and then you regress back to that level. But we always err on the side of caution because, long term we're talking about, our heads.
Some of the most important stakeholders in this game are the parents, are the families, are the folks who see these concussions happening on the field. And so when you have those folks involved and learning about the research and becoming more aware of what needs to be done on a program level or on a school level, that's how you're going to build up a lot of momentum within a particular community.
Arlington Rec Director John Marshall sees momentum shifting in Arlington.
I think any rec department is always looking at the needs of the community and trying to identify some of the gaps in services. I think what Arlington has done over the years is noticing that there was a decline in contact football, both at the Pop Warner and middle school level. We had worked previously with middle school football with the program, and then this past year we didn't have the registration numbers, so we weren't actually able to run it.
The Arlington Rec and Middle School football program had 35 participants in 2015. In 2016, that number dropped to 21. This year, only a few families expressed interest.
One of the ways we had tried to work and partner with that was to build up this flag football opportunity. So we're developing those core skills that are critical for kids. With all the information that's been coming out recently, with the NFL and around concussions, I think it's making parents a little bit more aware. So when you have a program like flag football, especially at the younger ages, I think parents are more apt to try to, put their kids in that program.
Any sports that give kids an opportunity to play the game they love without getting hit in the head over and over again is fantastic for them. And flag football is a great example of that. It's an altered version of the sport. You still get the throwing, you still get the catching, you still have fun playing the game of football and learning football, but you don't get all of those head hits that the adult game requires.
All of this for the hopes of changing the dialogue around concussions and contact sports for youth in the community.
The conversations about concussions are important because I think historically not everyone knew if they had sustained a concussion or they didn't know how to identify it. It's different than a broken arm. You see somebody with a cast, or their arm's bent or they're really bruised, it's easy to say that's an injury. With a head injury, you can't really point to it.
We've really seen a culture change based on the awareness that has grown in the last 10 years. And I think one of the things that actually leads that is that some of our greatest leaders in sports are really speaking up about this issue. So how could a local soccer coach of 10-year-old girls feel like they need to stand so firmly about drilling headers when our Olympic stars, Brandi Chastain and Cindy Parlow-Cohn, are telling us, well, we don't need those skills until we're 14 or 15 and in high school.
Youth sports leaders want to promote the benefits of team sports and exercise while looking out for their athletes' safety.
There are so many benefits for student athletes to be involved in athletics and developing life skills. It's correlated with higher graduation rates, job performances, lower disciplinary rates, higher self-esteem. So those are the reasons we really want kids to participate, right? It's better serving them. They're learning life skills that are going to help them well beyond their time here.
As a recreation professional, I think it's important for kids to get out. And it doesn't have to be football, but you got to get out, you got to be active, you got to find something that helps make you healthier.
We want to have kids playing a version of their sport that's safe for them and for their developing brain.
For Arlington Public News, I'm Sean Stackhouse.
Well, staying safe and having fun, the Spy Ponders fall sports season is wrapping up with some dramatic finishes. The boys cross-country team, led by junior Ryan Oosting, won the league's Liberty Division for the first time ever. The football team kept us on the edge of our seats during their playoff bid against Billerica, and girls soccer captured 2 important wins at the end of the regular season. ACMi sports producer Alex Van Thong brings us all the updates.
Welcome to another edition of the Arlington Sports Show. With the cold setting in, we're starting to wrap up our fall sports. Starting with football, the boys made their way to the playoffs after playing Belmont with a 41-28 win. Unfortunately, they weren't able to secure their position with a very tight 26-29 loss to Billerica on the 27th. The boys will play the home field against Lynn Classical on November 3rd. Taking a look at the soccer field, the girls team managed to secure a position in the tournament with an impressive 6-0 win against Mattanon. They play Tewksbury on November 4th. While the boys did take a loss versus Boston Latin, they had already secured a position in the tournament and will also play on the 4th versus Shawsheen Valley Tech. The girls volleyball team also made their way into the tournament and will play their first match versus Revere on Friday, November 3rd. Finally, let's give it up for our boys cross-country team, who took home their first Middlesex League title. That's all for sports this week. We'll see you next time for more Arlington sports.
What a great season. Thanks to the Ponders. Now let's take a look at what's coming up in Arlington. Arlington shows its gratitude to the men and women of the armed forces this Veterans Day. The annual Veterans Day Parade will be held on Saturday, November 11th, beginning at 10:30 a.m. Marchers will step off from Adams Street at Mass Ave and parade to Monument Square in Arlington Center for a ceremony honoring our local veterans and a wreath laying. The event takes place rain or shine. Just a reminder, Town Hall and both library branches will be open during regular business hours on Friday, November 10th, when Veterans Day will be officially observed.
Fall is fading and winter is still around the corner, but flu season is upon us. The Arlington Health Department is offering flu vaccine clinics for local children. Clinics will be held at all town schools over the next few weeks and will finish with a town-wide children's flu clinic at Ottoson Middle School on Thursday, November 16th from 5 to 7. Be sure to bring your insurance card. For more information and an insurance information form you can download, fill out, and bring with you, visit arlingtonma.gov/flu.
How soon might we see autonomous vehicles or self-driving cars traveling down Mass Ave? And what is the potential impact of this evolving technology? On Wednesday, November 14th, you can be part of that conversation. The Arlington Department of Planning and Community Development and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council are sponsoring an educational forum on autonomous vehicles at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Auditorium. Arlington Public News has been looking into the high-tech vehicle development in the Boston area, and we'll have a full story, including news from the forum, on our next edition of APN.
Thanks for joining us. You can check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Arlington Public.
And if you'd like to be part of Arlington Public News and ACMi, email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by the studio at 85 Park Avenue. I'm Paul Werlin.
And I'm Brenda Mahoney. We leave you tonight with the ghosts and goblins who haunted our studios, myself included, with my daughter as well, here at ACMi, decked out in their Halloween finest. See you next time.
Bye for now.